Welcome to the podcast. It's the best podcast in the world. This is going to end up on the show. I know it, motherfucker.
We've eclipsed the fear of God and fallen out of love. No more than a shadow, peaked and weak.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to episode 124 of Epitome of Stupidity, your favorite fucking metal show. The intro today is a song called Dead Ringer off Idle Heirs' debut album called Life is Violence, due out April 11th. It's probably my favorite on the album, but that is a tough fucking call with as much awesomeness as it as contained there within. It's really fucking good is what I'm getting around to saying. Speaking of awesome, hey, let's do this.
Sonic Temple Art and Music Festival, the pinnacle of rock festivals in America, returns in 2025 with Linkin Park, Korn, 2 nights of Metallica, no repeat weekend, plus Bad Omens, Incubus, Alice in Chains, Rob Zombie, 3 Days Grace, Alice Cooper, I Prevail, Jimmy Eat World, Chevelle, Motionless in White, and so many more. May 8th to the 11th at Historic Crew Stadium in Columbus, Ohio. Passes on sale now at sonictemplefestival.com.
As mentioned in the previous show with Doomsday, which you should absolutely fucking listen to if you haven't, that was a really fun fucking show with a really good band who put out a fucking great thrash album, especially for 2025. To be entered to win a pair of single day passes to one of the Metallica days here at Sonic Temple. Sorry as I stumble over my words to make sure I say this right. So to enter to win a pair of single day passes here at Sonic Temple for one of the Metallica days, all you have to do is email your favorite Metallica song to eostupidity@gmail.com. The email will be listed there in the show description to wherever it is you're seeing or hearing this from. So if you can't spell stupidity, there's probably a larger problem, but it'll be there for you to copy and paste. Also, if you see the podcast socials, I almost said the band socials, this isn't a band, you will know how to enter to win any of the non-Metallica Day pairs of passes that will be given away by the time this show is up for your ears and face. So, of course, follow the show on the socials. There's all kinds of fun there. Please do. And win some stuff. Why not? That seems like a good thing to do. The announcement for these winners will be on April 12th as well. As something I should note here. I'm really good at this. I've done it before. If you're new here, welcome in. This is a casual and ridiculous setting, so no need to dress up. If you're not new here, thanks for coming back. And I see you've got the comfy sweatpants on. Good for you. We're going to monologue for just a couple seconds longer here, and then we'll be off to another awesome interview. But first, here's the mead read. Here at EOS, you'll not only get an awesome interview with an awesome band, but you'll get an awesome discount on awesome mead. Sweet fucking hell, that's a lot of awesome. To collect your mead discount, go to brimminghornmeadery.com and pick out some delicious and award-winning mead. Then at checkout, use code EPITOMEAD, that's EPITOMEAD, and they'll knock 10% off the order and ship it right to your damn door. Links for them in the show description as well. Let's keep things moving here. We'll do some quick Clint notes on Idle Heirs, and then we'll jump into the interview. They are a 2-piece from the Kansas City area featuring Sean Ingram of Coalesce, as well as musician and producer Josh Barber. They had tried to get something going previously and for a while now, but with Idle Heirs, they finally pulled it off. The results of their work together being the album Life is Violence, which again comes out April 11th, where they strove for and succeeded to push each other and create something that is uniquely theirs. Not to be a homer here since they're on this show, but they fucking succeeded. This album is a hell of a listen, and I can't wait for more ears to hear it. Let's talk with them about it and find out more about all things Idle Heirs. Phone sounds, go. Beep, 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 beep. Ring. And the answers. On the line with me today are Josh and Sean, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you ahead of time they're fun. So, fellas, how the hell are you? Where are you calling from today? Josh, we'll start with you.
I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm at my studio down here, just hanging out.
I'm Sean Ingram. I'm here in Lawrence, Kansas. So that's about 40 minutes west of Kansas City. It's home of KU and the Jayhawks. And I'm here in my wife's lovely craft room with our children's pottery behind me, as I don't have an office yet.
The indoor she shed.
That's exactly right.
Fellas, so we've got the tangential introductions there. Let's go through larger introductions with yourselves and the bands. Again, we'll start with Josh there.
Well, I'm Josh Barber, of course, one half of Idle Heirs, and man, I don't know.
What you are the biggest puzzle piece for me here. What the fuck are you doing?
What do I do?
Yes,
man. I play guitar and I shoot stuff over to Sean. I mean, I write the music for us and produce the record and engineered the record and herd the cats that need to be herded for getting music out. So I'm that half of the project.
That half. How about the other half here?
Well, he's the bigger half. Let's make that clear. You know, he writes all of the music. He produces it. He has a million more friends than I do that are capable of playing these songs, you know, and so he assembles that. And so, yeah, don't let him downplay himself. Idle Heirs, yeah, I mean, all the concept, the name, this really all originated from Josh. For my part, I'm vocals, vocal arrangements, and lyrics. And then on this last record, art director, as far as like trying to make a physical, like try to make the art and the layout like actually match what was in my head that I was trying to get out, so yeah, so that's my part.
So if it's just the two of you as the main parts of the band, do you have like a cardboard cutout of a drummer or a bass player to get pissed at time to time?
Oh yeah. Yeah, so like, Sean and I are pretty even balanced. Like the thing can only run with the two parts in play, but we can't actually put legs to it without the guys. So we have our drummer Ben Turkovic, our bass player Kenny Saunders, guitar player Chris Gotchis. We have two keyboard players, Brandon Youngme and Brad Trinkle, and basically they help us make this thing real out there in the wild. It's kind of, we always akin it to like that 9 Inch Nails thing. There's Trent and Atticus, and then there's the band. So you always have like the Elon Rubins and the Robert Finks and stuff like that. So we need them to make this real.
If you were to list off a 4 fans up for Idle Heirs, how would you go about it? John, let's go with you to start this one.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
What was that?
If you were to list off a kind of 4 fans of in relation to Idle Heirs.
Okay.
The old FFO.
Oh, for fans of.
Yeah. Is my white half drunk ass Ohio person slurring?
No, I just didn't. For some reason it just didn't compute. Yeah. So I think our love of Johannes and Cult of Luna is pretty obvious. We wear that on our sleeves. I think that I don't think you have this type of music and without Neurosis, you know what I mean? Even though this is less of a kind of like a pagan approach, but like I think that yeah, I mean, and of course ISIS, and then the
holy fucking Trinity right there.
Yeah, because they're all cut from the same cloth, right? So I think that I would hope that fans of those bands would find something in this band that they like too, and see how we kind of like take that kind of approach and like just make it different, in our own unique way. I think the fourth one to me would probably, Josh, I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like Coma. It's another Johannes band, but like I think Coma, like KHOMA, that was a project that Johannes did from Cult of Luna. Didn't sound anything like Cult of Luna, but like to me, when we were kind of looking at doing this project, Josh had given me that record and he's like, hey, check this out. And I just fell head over heels for this record, because of the way that the vocal approach was and the builds, and like it's just this, their songs just build and build and build and build and build, and they just live there for the rest of the song. And so that to me is kind of something that like heavily influenced me. But yeah, I mean, it's like we're I think everybody agrees we're kind of falling into the post metal genre. So like, that type of band who like doesn't have time limits, who isn't in a rush, doesn't understand what 3 minutes is, and lets the song write itself. It's like that is the type of person that I think would like us. And I think unexpectedly, I think people will, the kind of rock or pop sensibilities to some of the things that we're doing in these songs, like at the beginning of Rarebird, or that's the type of thing that I think that I think is, maybe hard for some people to deal with, right? I read the internet, but like also it's like, it's one of those, it's just, to me, it's like, I think it's one of those interesting things to combine those, to combine that kind of post metal atmospheric build, and then also have something that, has a little bit of, hope to it too, you know what I mean? And how it, not only the lyrical content, but and how it's approached, vocally and musically together.
Yeah, I was walking the dog just a little bit ago, listening to, I can't remember what song it was, but you're speaking directly to my fucking heart with all these things. And the thing about the post metal stuff is where you can build that suspense, that you can just keep building something instead of having to be done in 3.5 minutes. The old Tom Petty, don't bore us, get to the chorus and be done with it.
Yeah.
You can build all that, and it's maybe it's not in 4/4, maybe it's something fucking weird. I love it so much. I get so much enjoyment out of it.
So
I'm gonna stop saying,
go ahead.
No.
What I was going to say is, it's like, I'm in bands that do 3-minute songs, 1-minute songs, 2-minute songs. You know what I mean? Not that there's ever a chorus in any of them, but there's something different about a song like Dead Ringer for me. And I say this at practice all the time. It's just like, I just love living in this song for 10 minutes. You know what I mean? And a 10-minute song is, 3 years ago would have been completely outrageous to me, because that's not the school I come from. But once you can like kind of build it and get into it, that song is not 10 minutes to me. That song flies by like in a minute or less, even though we're just in it. But like, the ability to tell a story and tell like more of a story than I'm used to being able to tell is like such a treat, and so I'll say that all the time. Is just like, I want to live in this riff. I want to live in this riff for a long time. Like I don't want to leave this, and so I think that's what's interesting about that music, and I'm like a huge Tool fan. So it's like, listening to 12-minute, 15-minute songs, that is nothing for me. It's like, I'm used to it. Elder, I mean, these are my, my favorite bands, so like, so that like kind of longevity. But like, I think that what like the Tom Petty's and stuff maybe don't get about like this, or don't understand about this, or understand about this genre, is that like, this is one of those places where you can let creativity go where it wants to go. You know what I mean? And I feel like one of the biggest restrictions on creativity is timing, right? It's like when you're always in a time frame, you know what I mean? That's why fucking work sucks, right? I got a mom that my mom started living with me, and we made the mistake of putting a clock, in front of the TV. I know exactly when it's fucking 6:30. I know exactly when it's 7. You know what I mean? It's like when you're just always on a time frame, it's just like, so like that is the part of this, like this project that I think I appreciate the most. And, and Josh wrote some that were shorter, you know what I mean? Like Pillow Talk, much shorter, much more traditional and time length, but that's where the song wanted to go. You know what I mean? And I think that is what's super cool about this whole deal is that you can let it go where it wants to go. And there's a fan base or an audience that will allow you to take them there. A PR person will tell you, like, when you're putting out a single, they're like, hey, 10-minute single, that's asking a whole lot of people. You know what I mean? But we did it, you know what I mean? And that's just because that's what it is, and it's been pretty interesting because it's like that time limit, it's like, I think I didn't hear any complaints about the length of it. You know what I mean? It's just, that it didn't even phase them. So to me, that's what's so interesting about it, is that feeling that I get, really, I think other people, maybe they don't realize they're getting the same idea that time flies when you're in a moment you want to be in, you know what I mean? But that definitely has been one of those, and it's been a learning experience.
I love the phrasing of living in the song and living in that riff, or that I'm trying so hard to not say living in the moment because we're just a hair's breadth from live, laugh, love at that fucking point. But you clearly get the point because you're the one that
riff,
said it.
laugh, love.
Well,
What is it?
Riff.
Riff, laugh, love.
There you go.
That's something I can get behind.
we can spin it to life, love, and regret from Unbroken really quick though.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say,
God bless Unbroken.
yeah.
to undo all that for us.
Josh, anything to add here?
No, I mean, I'm with Sean. Like, I wrote the music, and I didn't want. I do a lot of stuff that has to live in a time frame with the bands that I produce, and there's restrictions and expectations. And when we made this record, it was gloves off, no chains, do whatever you want. And I remember sending the demo of What Is Dead Ringer Now to Sean. And I think we talked about, like, I want this to be a single, but I think it was even longer at that point. Like, I think it might've been a minute or so longer. And, we didn't care because we just both loved that song. And,
well, you wanted to cut the course down.
That's right.
You're like, well, we want to cut it from 8 to 4. I was like, no.
Yeah,
like,
we left it.
Like, leave it at 8. Make it 16.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's post metal's great because it is that long form thing. And like, I can completely agree with Sean. Like, I'm a huge Tool fan too. Like, we both agree on that. Like, that band's amazing, and they don't really care about the duration. Like, it needs to be what it is so they can get their idea out. And for me, I think of the music we writing more in a scoring sense. Like, I think of it like a film. I got to see that scene all the way to the apex of whatever that is. So, yeah.
As you guys have talked through this, I've realized that coming into this, I caught the first couple singles. I think Pillow Talk might have been one of the first ones.
Yeah, it was the second one.
And I caught that somewhere along the line and was into that and kind of put it aside, waiting until I got the full album. I think it might be some of the other things that I instinctually relate to this, that it almost took me a minute to get the post metal piece of it.
Yeah, I like that and this is maybe this makes me sound arrogant or shitty, but like, I feel like we do post metal differently than anybody's done post metal. I think we're taking elements of everything that we enjoy and putting it into it. And like, I love seeing comments. Like, there's a comment on YouTube right now that says this sounds like A Perfect Circle and Cult of Luna. I'm like, I'm honored by that statement because A Perfect Circle rips. Like, I think there's a lot of beauty in the melody of more rock or radio focused music, but like, wouldn't it be cooler if those songs didn't have restrictions and you could just live in that melody? And I think that's what we do with Idle Heirs.
Fucking nailing it. If I understand things correctly, I believe you guys have been trying to do something for a while now. Can you give us the cliff notes of from the idea of getting something going to a week before Life is Violence comes out? We'll go ahead and keep with Josh here.
Well, I think a better way to format this is, Sean, you want to go out at the beginning and I'll pick it up from the writing?
Yeah. So, me and Josh have met a long time ago, but, folks would ask me to do, or what I should say is, like, I really got to know Josh when people would ask me to do guest vocals on their bands, something people used to do quite often. I did stuff for like Norma Jean and Every Time I Die and The Ocean and things like that. And so, I would go to Josh for those kind of like, to record those, for those people, right? For those bands. And so, Josh shared music with me and I loved it, but I wasn't in a time in my life that, I was looking at music. I thought I was done, I thought that whole part of my life was done. And, I was just, a t-shirt purring owner and father and husband, etc. And so anyways, yeah, you fast forward, I think it was like 10 years is what we think that it was, about a decade. And then everything changed kind of like after the pandemic, not during the pandemic, obviously did, but like, I think that if you think about this, Like there's a lot of people you know and you love that did not come through the pandemic the same. They just were very different, and they're not going back. Like there's just, you know, there was 9/11, there was the housing crisis, and then there's the pandemic. Like people's brains just kind of broke or rewired. And so my partners at the time, one of them didn't make it through, with everything intact. And so that went into this whole deal of like selling my business and exiting, et cetera. And so what I learned is that when you kind of go through that upheaval in your life and you start losing everybody in your life, like to death, and you're grieving, that's another thing that I was kind of going through at the same time, was just this insane amount of loss, is that, I just fell into like just a pit of depression, and so it was my wife who actually recognized it. And she was like, hey, I don't know what you need to do, but you need to figure out how to make music. Like you need to figure out how to do music again. And so, she really put an emphasis on that for me. And I was talking to Josh on and off, you know what I mean? Cause it's like, I kind of wanted to do it. Josh kind of wanted to do it. And we were kind of talking about it back and forth, and we gave it a shot with like a totally different group of guys. And, it's like, it wasn't the right fit, et cetera, and I think that Josh caught me on like a particularly dark day, like mentally, as I'm trying to like process all of this and like, what the fuck am I doing? You know what I mean? It's like, I've lost my dad, I've lost my mentor, I've lost my business, I've lost, my partner, it's like everything's gone. And really what happened is, I remember being in the talking to him while I was driving to some bullshit. And I just said, hey, you know what? It's like we're doing this or we're not. Whatever we have to do, either let's take a stab at this to write this music. And if you, and if we don't want to, or you don't want to, then like, don't talk to me about it again. It's like, I say this often, I'm a doer, not a dreamer. I just don't dream about shit. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just, I want it, if it's something I can do, or if it's something I can't do, it's like, I have enough self-awareness to fall into one of those categories, you know what I mean? And I can do a band, so like, after my wife's encouragement, and then after just telling Josh that, really, that he, and he'll expand on this more, but he took that as a challenge. But before Josh takes over, of like where this kind of picked up from there, this really was not an exercise to, like, it really wasn't an exercise to, get on a label and go on tour and do all these things. You know what I mean? It really, this was like a form of like internal self-healing. It's like, to me, music has always been like the most amazing gift to work your shit out, whether you're working your shit out on stage or you're working your shit out like in the lyrics, right? It's like, that to me that's how I approach music, and that's just who I am, So, as Josh and I kind of agreed on, like, that's what we wanted to do, that we would take a stab at this thing, maybe we'd give it to our friends, and then we would just go from there. That's when he got really serious. And Josh, you can take it from here.
Yeah. So yeah, like Sean said, like, we kind of had this challenge was put before me, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then there was also kind of that expectation that I didn't want to be in Coalesce 2.0, but I'm working with the vocalist of Coalesce. So I went out to Oceanside, Oregon, rented an Airbnb. I had all these credits because the pandemic fucked everything up, and I had all like flight credits and rental car credits and Airbnb credits and all this stuff. So I was like, well, shit, I'm just going to pick a place I've never been and just post up there for about, I think it was like 8 or 10 days. And I went out there and, just west of the Tillamook National Forest, and sat down and wrote a bunch of music. And the first song I finished was a song we released today, now called Mama. And I sent it to Sean, but I had gotten a new phone literally the day before I left, and I didn't turn all my stuff on. So I sent it to Sean, a super vulnerable song from a super vulnerable producer who's writing music for the first time in like 18 years. And, you know, I just was kind of like sitting there. I'm like, I'm going to keep writing because I didn't hear from him. And I was like, man, this sucks because he thinks this sucks. He hasn't responded. And then the next day I realized I didn't have all my Wi-Fi stuff on, and I was like on the coast. I had no cell service. So I turned that on, and Sean's like, this is great. I was like, oh, fucking good. Because I'm in love with it. I would hate for my friend to be like, this sucks. And then that's the end of us doing something, you know, but it wasn't, it was there. Like he said, there's no expectations. I mean, this was just for him and I to work all the shit out that had happened to us, you know, and I was having a hard time coming out of the pandemic, and I've been taking care of my grandparents at that point, and it changed everybody, like you said. And yeah, we were both kind of going through a little bit of depression and everything. And so wrote the music, and then we started demoing it. And then I called Sean and I was like, hey man, hear me out. I have a crazy idea. Let's go, since I wrote it near the ocean, let's go record it near the ocean at Ocean Sound in Norway. You know, Cult of Luna did a record there. Like all these cool, like Norwegian bands did stuff there. And it just seemed like there was something kind of calling me to that location. And he's like, yeah, I mean, fuck, because it's like, you know, we're never going to do this again. This was like we're going to put this on Bandcamp, and like everyone will be lucky if we play one show in Lawrence, Kansas. Like we were just working our shit out. And, you know, we went out there and we had an amazing time recording. It was phenomenal. Brought those guys out with us to track it. We tracked it live. It's all unedited. Like it's just that what you're hearing is a take.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, we wanted it to be real, and I wanted to show musicality in it and not water it down by too much production. So we did that, and we came home and we had messages from Relapse like, yo, send us a track. And we were like, no, like you'll hear it when it comes out on Bandcamp. And then I remember Sean talking to me one day, and he's like, listen, they're up my ass. Can we just send them a song? And didn't we send them a rough of Rare Bird?
I don't remember what we sent, but yeah, Drew from Relapse, you know, I work with them in another management company, which is run by Rennie Jaffe, who's at Relapse. So like I work with them through like my professional life too. You know, and we were just talking about something, and I think I just made mention. I was like, oh yeah, and I'm going to Norway, you know, and I think Drew was just like, oh, what for? I was like, oh, we just been working on some music, just, you know, just like whatever, you know what I mean? It's like you know, I didn't have a thing to sell. I'm not trying to sell something, you know what I mean? I was just making something. So, I think that he was just like, oh shit, I really want to hear it. You know, it's like, you know, so I think that sometimes I forget how much, like, you know, Drew's a fan of my other band and stuff. And you know what I mean? It's like, to me, Drew's just Drew. He's just my dude, Drew, you know? So like, yeah, I don't always remember that people might care, you know what I mean? And that I'm making something. So, but he cared deeply, and he asked, and he kept asking. And like, it just really was just interesting, because it's like, well, are we softening on this? Are we doing this and stuff? And so, yeah, I mean, it's just, we did. I mean, obviously we're talking to you, but I credit Drew and Rennie for being so gracious and supportive, and being like, no, actually let's put your 10-minute single out and see what happens, you know? So anyways, that's kind of like how it kind of got from those two places. Then, you know, now we're just kind of, and it's a snowball, right? So, you know, we've got Stephanie and team, you know, and Steve and Enrique.
Hi, Stephanie.
What's that?
Hi, Stephanie.
Yeah, we got them working for us and doing great work. And, you know, and then, you know, our booking agent helped us get these shows, and we went to New York, and it's like, now I think we got the taste of it. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, going back to that previous comment of like loving to live in these songs. It's like, it's just so exciting to play. You know what I mean? It's like, there's there's always the trappings of tour, right? You know, there's the business side of it, there's the travel, there's like all of this other stuff, you know, that different people say that they, you know, they perform more and they're like, oh, I gotta play or whatever. But like with this band, it's like showtime is playtime. Like I am excited to get up there, and it's just such a different experience, you know what I mean, to be able to sing and to be able to do it in this different, you know, way. And so I think at that point, I think we were all hooked coming back from New York. We're just like, okay, we want to keep doing this. Like we want to share this with as many people as we want, which is kind of bizarre to say out loud because that, you know, we obviously approached this very selfishly in the beginning, you know, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like, I think it's one of those things where it's like you jump off the high dive for the first time and you're scared, and then you just keep running right back up, you know, and doing it again and again and again. It's like, I think that first show was kind of like our high dive first jump. And now, you know, it doesn't tickle our tummies anymore. We're like ready to, you know, do backflips and crazy shit, you know what I mean? And that's just really kind of, you know, for lack of a better metaphor, you know, that's kind of where I feel we're at.
In talking through what you've just talked through and what I've seen leading up to this conversation, I've seen more than twice and heard at least once you guys talking about doing this album for yourselves, and this is a Bandcamp thing or whatnot and what have you. Even with that kind of freedom, was there a point where something was put on the board and it was, you know, no, this is too fucking weird. No, this is too jazz influence. No, this is no. Josh, if you're doing most of the writing, I guess. Nope, Sean's already starting to say something.
No, I got something to say. I've got something.
There it is.
I would say that we definitely had things that hit the scrap heap, but it wasn't because it wasn't because we overthought it or thought it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So that, to me, that's the really cool thing about having a little extra time to do this, you know, and your partner is actually a producer and you're not really kind of limited by any kind of technical ability or time or money, you know, in that respect, is that, you know, a part's missing, I got to go back and add the part, you know. It's like, there's like a perfect example is my favorite two parts on Dead Ringer are this little itty bitty tiny 4-count beat where the drum, you know, and the lyric says, so fuck this life, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just, I heard the song a million times, and then I heard it 1,000,001 times, and I was like, it's missing this thing right here, because I love so much what Ben was doing. And then there's also that little bridge part, you know, it's like, how many white lies to see this through, you know, that whole thing is like, that was originally empty. And so like being able to go in and add, but you know, on the flip side, there was, you know, a bit, and there's the bridge in Dim Shepherd, you know what I mean? It's like, I thought I knew what I wanted, and then I put it together and I fucking hated it, you know what I mean? And I was just like, this isn't working. So finally we just, you know, just kind of turned our brains off, and then Josh is like, do it like this. And then we just started belting it out. I was like, okay. And then it just falls into place. I mention this all the time, but Rick Rubin's book, you know, about creativity that recently came out, it's gray and has like a circle and a dot. You know, he shares a lot of wisdom that we experienced on this record just through dumb luck, you know what I mean? That he writes about in his book. And it really, he's very accurate in that if you can just get out of your own fucking way, your record is going to write itself in ways you didn't expect. And that is very true. And that's not to saying that there's no technical ability or intelligence applied to a song, but it's just like, there is definitely an overarching bigger, like just being able to sit back and get out of your way. You know what I mean? That all of this stuff starts coming through, right? You know, I think one of the bigger things that people probably do in this day and age is like, oh, is this cringe? Or, oh, is this too much like this? Or, is, you know, will they think that I'm this band? And so like, I would argue that those things too, maybe fuck them, try them out, be as cringe as you fucking want. It's going to bridge you over to something great, you know? And, in dealing with my kids, You know what I mean? The amount of things that they're scared to do because they might be cringe is like, it's heartbreaking. You know what I mean? It's like, that is like, you have to put yourself out there. You know what I mean? You have to do it or not do it. And so I'm going off a little bit of a tangent here, but I would say that those are two pretty good examples of kind of like, you know, of like what hit the scrap heap floor and like what luckily did not, because we had, you know what I mean? Because those are two moments that, you know, I still, you know, scream in my car when I'm prepping the song. You know what I mean? I love those. So
Hell yeah, man. Josh, anything to add to that?
You know, there's so I wrote more songs than I actually brought to the table. So yeah, some things just like you just write unconsciously and you just put everything down. I always tell people in the studio, let's not say no, let's try things, you know, because no leads to dead ends. Whereas if you try it, you might find out you have a little bit more runway. And so I tried a bunch of stuff, and then I kind of just stacked all the songs up against themselves. And Sean and I made a call on one song specifically out in the studio, and we just like, nah, that one's got to go because it just didn't flow with the album. And there's a bunch of other stuff that, I mean, I don't even think Sean's heard that I just was like, nah, we're going to, like, that can be worked out better. It's like, it's good, but it's not great. And we just kept all that was great and put it into the album. But like, for me, the thing that's really cool about this album and talking about things that get cut is, so Sean was very gracious when we decided we were going to do this. He's like, you do the music. Like, and I took that as far as I wanted to take it, to the point where I was like, I'm happy. Like, I can't do anything else. And then the same thing to him is like, I just said, hey, go write. Like, he wrote and changed and evolved himself. And like, I didn't get involved like in changing what he was doing. I let him see it all the way through to where he wanted to be. And then once we were both like, okay, I'm really happy with where we're at, that's when we came together. And it was like a process of figuring out what worked best for it. And that's what's really cool about this record is it truly is collaboration and also individuality at the same time. Like, it was both of us seeing everything right to where we wanted it to be, and then kind of editing together. And then, you know, there were things that Sean came up with that maybe I was trying to say, oh, we could do this differently. And he'd explain it to me and show me, and then he'd evolve it. I'm like, well, I was wrong. Like, that was great. Like, we needed to keep it there, and vice versa. And it's just really cool because I can hear moments in the record where we were like, yes. And I can hear moments that we worked through and won. Like, we beat the thing, you know, that you always are trying to beat.
Sure.
And that's what's really cool. So like, are there like like duds? No, I don't think so. Like, not to be arrogant. There were no duds. There was just the album, like Sean was talking about. Once we pushed that cart over the hill, it started telling us what it needed to be. And some things always need to go to the wayside. We can revisit those for when they need to be on a record. But like, I think Life is Violence, I don't know if there's a song that needs to go on there or anything else we could do. I think we saw it where we needed to go.
I love the idea of collaboration, but individual as well too, because I think that's something a lot of people, bands, whatever, what have you, strive for. But sometimes it ends up in clash, and sometimes it works fucking perfectly.
Well, this is hot take, and I kind of don't care. But I think a lot of people are playing fashion show, and they use the compass of another band to dictate what they'll do. And it's sad because what's amazing is when you let somebody else do what they do and you do what you do, and you both do it at the top of your ability, and you push each other to be better, and then you bring it together, and then you have either the strength to stand by your opinion or the maturity to say, yes, there is something else that my idea could use, and I need to tap into you for it. You're missing out. Like, a lot of people, like, and I'm not going to say genres or whatever, because I can't ever tell somebody their art isn't special to them, but I have done those records, and I have seen people be like, but it's not like this single.
Right.
and it's not like this, and this is what's competitive, and this is what's, it's like, man, that's not how art's made. I fuck that whole mentality. Make what you're going to make. And if you love it, man, people will connect with it. You know, it's got to be honest.
That is
the root of that. The root of that is money ruins everything.
Yeah.
Money ruins art. It just does. There's just no, you know, and if to anyone who's just like, yeah, but you gotta, yeah, I know you fucking gotta support your band and make ends meet. But like when you like, dude, it just never fucking fails. Anytime you write a song to make money, it just doesn't feel like art. You know what I mean? Or if you're like writing a record to, you know, yeah, that's all. Money ruins everything.
I think the line between simple and generic is in there somewhere, where simple can be great. A lot of great things are fucking simple. Generic can also be simple and it's shit.
Yeah, but you can have really generic, complicated turds too.
Sure.
There's a band that comes immediately to mind that I will not mention, but I'm just like, it's not bad. It's just
not
complicated,
good.
generic crap.
Yeah.
So
I don't think it'd be a stretch, even if you only hear this fucking album once. And if you hear it once and don't come back to it, I don't understand why you're listening to this. But I don't think it'd be a stretch to say that there are maybe some things being dealt with lyrically here. What are some of the themes and topics being dealt with there, Sean?
Sure. Yeah. So these questions are always hard, right? Because you craft this idea and this feeling, and you hide yourself a little bit, or you put yourself on your sleeve. But then when you have to answer a question, it's like do an elevator pitch for it, right? So it as someone who writes it, it's always hard because it makes it feel like you as a human, like maybe your feelings are like a little cheesy or you know, like I mentioned, cringe or all of that, right? And so how I've really been trying to describe this as we've been kind of like talking to folks is that I mean, this, like, lyrically, this record is a record of grieving. It's the process of grieving and questioning your own importance and mortality to the next generation after you, right? So think of it in the context of a man losing his father, him looking at his children and reflecting on like what kind of father he is, and what if I, you know, my father didn't get to tell me the things at the end of his life that, you know, he probably felt were most important, right? And so here I am with this luxury of the perspective that he didn't get, right? And so I wanted to approach it in such a way that, like, if I drop dead tomorrow, my kids have a living document of everything that I felt and wanted to say as a man and their father and husband, you know, to my wife. And so to me, that, you know, like, for instance, in Dead Ringer, right? There's that line that says, "Is this my eulogy?" It's a very honest line. It's like, I'm reading this and I'm just like, is this my eulogy? You know what I mean? Am I dead? Am I dying? You know, am I actively planning my ends? Like what is happening here? You know? And so that permeates the entire record from beginning to end, even in, you know, some of the lyrics that I collaborated with Josh, you know what I mean? It's like they like Pillow Talk, I collaborated with the lyrics on that with Josh. And yeah, it's like, I think just in general, this is one of those records that's a little scary, you know, now that we've, you know, jumped off the proverbial diving board here, because this is one of those records that if you don't like this record, you quite literally don't like me personally. And so that is, I think that's a thing that I think that people struggle with. I not to keep mentioning Tool or anything, but like I remember reading this article with Maynard, and he was talking about I believe it was 10,000 Days, Wings for Marie 1 and 2. He wrote that about his mother, and he said something to the effect of like, I will never share myself like that ever again. And so I get that, you know what I mean? And like, I can only imagine the microscope he's under. I'm not under that microscope, so I could just bulldoze in here and just, take an emotional shit on everybody and move forward. But I would, that's really where this kind of, that's really what that what we're saying, that shit we're working through on my end. It was just working through this idea of, I'm on borrowed time. My friends are dying. It's like, this isn't like a friend passing, approaching 50. This is like normal. You know what I mean? This is when our hearts turn off and our families find us in the yard mowing, right? Or shoveling the driveway, And so I just wanted to create this amazing thing lyrically for the people that meant the most to me. You know what I mean? And so, so in that sense, it's one of those records that, it was an intense personal, possibly overshare, but yeah, it's one of those, it's also one of those things where there's nothing left to say, which is interesting. You know what I mean? As I go into another record, you know what I mean? There's always an idea or whatever, but it's like, as far as the idea of like, hey, I'm gonna write a record where I'm going to share myself personally and what this grief and what my fears for the future look like when I'm gone, this is it. It's been done. It's been seen to the end. So, that's the best I can do, trying to, put it into a thought that isn't, 47 minutes of music and screaming at the top of my lungs.
Speaking of musically here, we'll transition to Josh. Musically, it feels like there's a big breath in between each song before they really get going. It's almost like watching it's almost like being in a devastating fucking storm, watching it leave, and then seeing on the horizon the next one fucking coming in. Was that intentional? Is there I want to give people a second to breathe before I fucking sludge their brains out?
It's funny that you use a storm analogy because I am very so I wouldn't say suffer. I have synesthesia. So I see colors and visuals with music. You can look it up. It's crazy. Sometimes it leads to really obnoxious dreams, but I'm very influenced by my surroundings, and I really have to get alone to tap into stuff. I can't have distractions. Like, I get rid of like once a week, I leave my phone at home just to like mentally, it's get myself back into where I need to be. But when I went out to write in Oceanside, I picked perfect timing. I picked like right a couple days before Halloween into November, where it is the stormiest, it's the grayest, the mistiest, the foggiest. And I went out there, and man, I decided that landscape, and I have photos of it, I've posted and stuff and little video clips, but there were storms constantly. And I remember getting calls from the Airbnb owner like, hey, there's a pretty wicked storm coming in. You're probably going to lose power. So like, if you need anything, you should go into town, which is like 30 minutes into Tillamook, to get groceries and stuff, because if there's a landslide or anything, the one road in and out, it's toast, and then they don't get power on for a day or so. So, it really is. And I had thought about being, congruent with the music where they flow into each other and stuff like that. But I felt like every song stood on its own as its own little story. And there was really no need to weave anything in between it. It's kind of like, hey, here's this thing, live in it. Okay, here's this thing. And yeah, our album is pretty unrelenting when you get down to it. Like, it is deep thought, deep emotion, dense music, boom, 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 boom. And then that big at the end with Mama. But then you realize it's kind of like when you breathe out and then somebody sits on your chest. That's how I feel about Mama. It's the last, sucks it out of you, and that's the final word. Like, you just kind of leave it there. So intentionally, no, but once I started hearing what Sean was doing, I think each song needed to live on its own, because I did actually have somebody ask, like, why don't they fade into each other or this, that, and the other thing? I'm like, because they don't emotionally fade into each other. They're all separate thoughts. It's like 8 little movies to me, and you get to watch all of them. So
yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. And it's, the separation is necessary. You would just be inundated if there wasn't just a little bit there.
yeah, can you imagine just going from Pillow Talk into Jaded Mountain into, it's just like, it would be fatiguing. You know?
Right. John, on this album, people are very literally hearing you differently. What have some of the reactions been like to your increased range here that you're using? How and when did you realize that this was possible? How did you go about getting to it?
Well, it's just something I've always wanted to do. In the past, I've done, I've got to sing on bits, in my other band, but like, that band just doesn't really lend itself for that kind of range. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just not, and so, when we decided that we wanted to do this, it's like, Josh, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I remember saying, I want to sing. It's like, I was like, I want to do singing, and I played Josh, Bob Jr. I played him some of the other stuff. I was like, this is what I sound like. So it's like, and I don't know how to sing, you know what I mean? It's like, this is really hard for me to do. I don't know if I have the ear for pitch. I don't know any of these things. And so, that was very much a conscious decision, but but that was a decision because it's like, I knew that was going to allow me to tell the story, the way I wanted. Like, for instance, I wrote this song with Coalesce called A Safe Place, right? It's an incredibly emotional song about my wife as she dealt with childhood trauma, and it's a love song. And it's just like, the whole thing, you know what I mean? It's like, to me, it's like, on this, the way that we're doing this project is, it's like, if I ever get lucky enough to have another writing moment like A Safe Place, which I did, luckily, that I wanted to be able to like actually convey those emotions in more unique ways. And so that was important to me, you know what I mean? And because also no one was going to hear this. So I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? I want to do what I want to do. I don't want to dream about singing on a song. I want to fucking sing on a song. So, when this all started coming together, amazingly enough, the thing that was actually the biggest challenge was screaming, if you can believe that. So, I had not screamed in, Joshua, was it 14 years? 14?
Like 14 years or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, the last time I had screamed was on stage with Converge, you know what I mean? And then I never did it again, and so, I went through a long process, over a year-long process, as we were going through this, like trying to get my voice back and to understand how my vocals worked and what made them sound the way they did and how to maintain them. And gosh, I think I went to 2 or 3 different like scream teachers. Can you believe that exists now? It's so cool. So
Scream teachers.
Yeah, just scream teachers. It's like, 15 years ago, I just don't think anyone really attributed much talent to screaming, right? And I tell the story all the time. It's like the world doesn't really think twice about a great scream, but they will fucking let you have it if they hear a bad scream. And
Sure.
and that's Howard Dean. He lost his political career over it, right? Ah! You know what I mean? So it's like that to me, I think that is a really important lesson for people to understand, that like there's talent in this type of underground screaming music. Screaming conveys an emotion that singing can't, and singing does convey emotion that screaming can't. And then like having a range and being able to do all these things is like a gift to be able to approach those. So really the singing was a lot of just figuring it out and and then learning about it, but it was the screaming that actually took the most work, to get back. But once there is a muscle memory to it, to where I was like, there it is. Now I know how to get back into it. But I started working with Alyssa Alvarez. She was given to me. She's she does opera, and she's a vocal coach, and she was referred to me by Shane and Damien from Great Falls, and she also does voice for Scott Evans, and she now does like Matt Pryor from the Get Up Kids, and so she just helps a lot of people kind of like in our scene, in our vibe, right? And so really it was working with her that I was able to kind of like be able to control it a little bit better. I've got a long way to go, obviously, but like just being more confident, and and just understanding like how, like the physicality of how it works and how to prepare myself, and and if anyone follows us or any of those other bands I mentioned, Museum of Light as well. She's actually Ted from Museum of Light's sister, and she was on their record recently, and she trains them as well. But like like steaming, it's just like a thing that you're kind of seeing online a lot more. It's just this big steamer. It just, for us people who are screaming for an hour and a half a night, you know what I mean? It's like, we now have the tools and the understanding to not blow our voices out after 3 days on tour and go home broke and pissed off, right? It's like, so that is, to me, that's like the part of like fast forwarding 15 years. That's amazing, because like, no one used to care about my vocals. They're like, I don't know, it's what, he doesn't need anything, just whatever, just plug him in. And now I'm like looking at like the type of microphone I'm using, and and I'm prepping, front of house, like, hey, I want to make sure that the vocals are in level. You know what I mean? It's like, and I think a lot of that also changed with the way that the fan expects a band to play. Is 15 years ago, it's like, cool, I saw that band. Never mind, they sounded like shit, and nobody cared what they sounded like.
Yeah.
Now it's very different, God damn, $20 is a lot of money to see a band. You better sound good, and and me and Josh go to shows, and one of my top 2 favorite bands that I've mentioned on this podcast, we went, and the sound was so fucking horrible. I was like, let's just go home. And it's just like, I've been waiting years to see him, but it's like, I don't hear a single guitar lick. I don't hear anything. And we, and me and Josh, we're in bands. We understand the cone of silence up front. So it wasn't like I was standing in front of the guitar cab being like, why can't I hear the vocals? Which is something that happens to me all the time. But like, we moved around the whole room, and it was still terrible, and it was, and it's funny because I'm so hypocritical, because like as a fan, I'm like, you better sound fucking perfect. But as like a performer, I'm all like, hey man, give me a break, I'm doing the best I can. But me and Josh do have this funny anecdote, or from the show, is that we always know we're in for a bad night when you see a front of house person frantically running from the board to the center of the room back to the board again. Is like, oh, they've lost control of the room.
Yeah, bad night.
It's gonna be a bad night. But yeah, so I mean, look, I will give everybody a break, but I do also understand, in this day and age, it's like people demand a good sounding show, and they should.
Thank your buck.
Yeah, I mean, they should. It's their hard-earned money. You know what I mean? Fucking food's expensive. Shit's about to, get way more expensive after, yesterday. And so like, it's just part of it. It's like it needs to be pro. And I do also like it too, because it makes our bands, more conscious of being like, hey, you're going to take this seriously. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, I think back in the day, I would have tolerated seeing a band drunk on stage. I just would not fucking tolerate that today, because it's like, you are wasting my time. You know what I mean? And so anyways, that I'm getting a little nutty here, but like that to me is where we're at. And I think that to get there is training and taking care of yourself, and that, having the right team in place, I think is super important. And I would say, it's even pros as long-standing as Matt Pryor, from the Get Up Kids, they've toured like animals forever and ever, right? He's never had a vocal coach. So it's interesting to see him now being like, hey, you know what? I just want to sound amazing, and I don't want to work as hard to sound amazing, you know what I mean? So that I can get more into the music, you know what I mean? I'd like to put the energy in. So to me, it's just really reassuring to see like old pros that are like been doing this more than a minute, you know, that are still reaching out and they're up in their game, you know, and to that effect, I think that you're seeing some of these bands that, you know, have been around a minute that are playing the best they've ever playing better now than they did 30 years ago. You know what I mean? And, you know, whatever started that change, God bless them. Cause I think it really is cool, but it's also a lot of work. Give me a break. I'm doing my best.
So instrumentally, Sean, I believe there's a theremin used on this album, correct?
Yeah. Josh, you want to talk about that? Cause I wanted to point this out because there was this really funny comment that says, on YouTube, there's like, why the fuck are there 2 keyboard players? And I'm like, there's actually more than 2 keyboards.
Yeah.
There's a theremin, and then there's a lap steel, and there's a computer. There's like 4 or 5 fucking things going back there.
Yeah.
And Josh, you want to expand on that? Because I did
Well,
get
more
it.
than anything, I want to like my lead in here is that fucking thing as fun as it looks like it would be.
Yeah, dude. It fucking like that's the thing is like I wanted to do stuff that was fun to get the sounds that were in my head. And on the album, it's a theremin and actually like a ribbon. So like it's not actually like in pitch. You have to actually like play it with your finger. And then we also added lap steel, or I added lap steel, and there's a lot of EBO stuff. Like, man, there's tons of strings on the record. I think I played tons of synths, and like on Mama, I played a Rhodes, a Jupiter, or was it a Juno? A Juno, a Rhodes, and a Whirly. And then I played my piano here in my studio. Like it's all organic stuff. Because fuck you. I mean, there's a theremin. That's why. Like,
Is there name another band with a theremin? Like, is there? Can you think of another one?
Clutch.
I
mean, somebody. I mean, fucking.
Clutch just there's a theremin on Clutch's new album,
and those guys they don't give a fuck either, and I love that.
Who's this? Say it one more time. I'm deaf.
Clutch.
Oh yeah. Dude,
yeah, the rock and roll gods.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, you know, when he brought it up the first time, I was like, oh yeah, fucking X-Files, dude. Wing Chunks from outer space. You know what I mean? It's like that's very, yeah. You know, it's like it was so cool. You know, but yeah, what a bizarre thing. You know what I mean? But it's fun, and I love how Josh had to like research a theremin stand and fashion a theremin stand. What you working on? Just my
lap steels and theremins do not have the right equipment out there. They really need to focus in those industries.
Yeah, those 3 bands using them.
Yeah,
so, yeah, 3 rock bands using them. Yeah,
but, I mean, if you're gonna do it right.
Yeah.
I believe the album title is taken from a lyric in Loose Tooth, which is just the fucking absolute perfection of an album opener here, just like Mama's the perfect fucking closer. So to tie a couple questions here together, were there any other competitors for album title, and how quickly did you know that both Loose Tooth and Mama were the openers and closers? We'll go Josh.
Yeah, I actually came up with the first iteration of the name. I walk like every day. I try to put my 15,000 steps in, and I was walking one day and I was listening to Sigur Rós, so nothing with lyrics that I understood. And it was just like this really quiet section, and I stepped up. You know, when you haven't talked for a while and then you hear your voice and you kind of go, oh shit, like I've done that. And that was that day. I was like, I had the headphones in, and I stepped up on like a curb walking to my house, and I said, everything about life is violence. And I was going through, man, they thought I had cancer and heart failure and all sorts of stuff going wrong with me. I was trying to figure out all this pain in my chest and my throat, my abdomen. And I, just panicked. Like, and I don't know, that thought came to mind. And then Sean and I, I don't know. We just got together to talk about the record or something down at.
We're at the Pig having a drink. I think it was the Every Time I Die show, wasn't it? Like the last Every Time I Die.
Yeah, it was the Every Time I Die. Yeah.
Yeah, they came to town, and Josh was just like, "Hey, you have to come to the show." And so, I just turned around, and we're at this this famous place in Lawrence called the Bourgeois Pig, and just having a drink. And then he told it to me, and I just immediately spat back at him. I was like, "Life is violence." It's like, just a shortened version, and so, yeah. So, and it's interesting because Josh has his idea, and like, and it's interesting because like, as the lyrics evolved, like from, I feel like it has multiple meanings, to us, and like, from my perspective, it very much was, of the idea, like, to the next generation that like, hey, life is violence, you need to get dirty, like the American dream is dead, it's like we need to circle the wagons because like there's no one to help. So that's really kind of how it evolved as I, as all of these things kept getting done and stuff. But I always like how it's just still kept, it's, in its original meaning.
There, to answer your question, the initial question. So that's how we came up with the title. But Loose Tooth as the opener and Mama as the closer, that's all Sean. Sean laid all the music out, and you came up with the order.
Well, I mean, we both did in Norway as we were trying to figure out how to cut that one song, or whether we should cut the song. But I lobbied for Loose Tooth as the intro because I thought that it was just it was a build, you know what I mean? It's like, to me, it's like, I just loved the idea that it would just be so incredibly soft and then just end so incredibly heavy. And like, for some reason, I don't know if it's the contrast of that song, but that riff just like, I just fall head over heels for it when it goes. And I have no idea if that riff would sound the same if it was inserted into another song, coming out of another riff, but like, just something about it was just punishing. And so actually, I put the album title into that song because I wanted the first, I just thought it'd be really interesting that if the very first thing I screamed was the album title. So, as this record comes through, it's all the singing, and then it's yeah, life is violence. And I just thought that was really cool, interesting way to do, because I've never done that, and so so actually the title came first, and then I inserted it into the song later, as we were like kind of putting it together. But also was because I wanted that to just be the first heavy thing that I laid on you. What was that? And then what did we miss? One of the other parts of the question? Did I miss one of the?
I think the third part of there was Mama being the closer.
I think we all just knew that was an ender.
Once you heard it, like, especially if you heard the demo and then you heard what it actually turned into, once we started doing it out in Norway, and I put this dumb rule that it had to be the perfect one take, we knew after we listened to it, like, we all were like just somber listening to it in the studio, and everybody goes, yeah, that's it. Like, you got to end it on that. There's like birds chirping in the ocean, and like, I had to time my breaths on the picking because I was so close to the microphone. And the poor Brandon Youngme, who co-produced and engineered, he was like, is that the take? And I'd be like, no, it's not the take. And he was like, why? And I was like, the wave crashed like against not on rhythm with what I did. I want to do it again. I think I played it 23 times until I was like, that's the take. So, yeah.
I believe earlier it was alluded to that the band name Idle Heirs was your idea, Josh?
Yes.
Where did that come from?
So originally it was just Heirs. But unfortunately, there's a band that's not doing anything with the name, and they were the first to it. So you know, we're not trying to dick anybody over, and we're also not trying to get into any problems with anybody. But to me, I had the name in my head because of something I had written, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but it meant something to me. And it I think it deeply affected my view of where we were going. And when I shared that with Sean, he has a different view of what that means to him, but they are kind of the same. It's just two sides of that coin. And yeah, it's just something, it was just something on my heart, and I just threw it out there, and I was like, I guess that's cool. That's cool. And then we had to add a name to it, but the name actually kind of made it even more appropriate. So
How often is it mispronounced?
oh man, lots.
Idle Heirs.
Yeah,
I
Idle
love that one.
Idle Air, like AIRS.
Yeah,
That's yeah, whatever.
it's part of it. Yeah, look, dude. Like, you know, in another 10 years, everybody, there's not going to be no two-word band names. It'll be 3-word band names.
Yeah.
We're running a band names. We need to create a trademark process. A use it or lose it band name trademark process. But just kidding aside, like yeah, it's band names are hard. You know, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like naming
the worst.
Totally the worst, you know what I mean? But then sometimes when you don't have a band, you're like, listen to this amazing band, and you got the coolest. Yeah. So like I've got a handful of, like, you know, offensive names. You know, the one that someone has to steal from me is Drizzlecock, and you know, like, just, you know, all these just not super offensive, like anal cunt, but like just enough to be like, no. I'm not interested in that. But yeah, and I think that's a fun game. But then when you take yourself seriously, you know what I mean, you're just like, you know, now I understand why Crosby, Stills and Nash was called Crosby, Stills and Nash, because, you know what I mean. But yeah, but you know, we had looked when, you know, when we found out that we were actually going to put something out, we really had to rethink the band name, you know what I mean, and I'm sure lots of bands have done this, you know. We weren't even married to Heirs, you know what I mean. At that point, we're like, hey, let's just start over. But then when we can't, you know, when we just kind of thought about like what the original concept was, it's like Idle Heirs finally came together, you know, and it just looked right when we put it on paper, which is the ultimate test, you know what I mean, is to write it down. It's like, does it look weird? You know what I mean? And it did not look weird. It's like, yeah, I think that's our name, you know. And sometimes on that stuff, you know what I mean, you're just, you know, you go out on a limb, you know what I mean. It's like, I wonder what Chickenfoot, you know, process was when they came up with their name, you know what I mean. It's like you either get goofy, or you know what I mean, or you get serious, or you know what I mean. It's like, what do you know? Who knows? I don't know. It's it's a very bizarre practice, because it's
the worst.
I'm sure Chickenfoot really means really something deep to that guy.
Oh man. There's a lot of soul searching being done there.
But you know what I mean? It's like, it's just, yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, there's so many different ways to go. So it's like, it's just, you know, and then like I hear other, like I always, you know, like Chat Piles, one of the coolest fucking names you ever heard ever. It's like, what the, you know, I was like, oh, are those just 2 words that they made up? I was like, oh wait, no, that's some shit. That's an actual thing, you know, coming from down there. And it's like super interesting, you know what I mean? And when you see how that they're building this kind of like landscape of forgotten middle America, it's like, it's the most genius name ever, you know, for what they're doing. And so yeah, you know, and like, yeah, it's just, there's just, yeah, who knows where you, but I will just say this, it's the fucking worst. Why isn't there a company that you can hire to just put your band name together? It's like, yeah, it's band name, you know, yeah, because it's
don't worry, that's coming. AI generated band name.
Put it into ChatGPT right now.
Yeah, that's gonna suck.
That's how you get Chickenfoot.
Yeah, not anymore. It has to be the Chickenfoot or Idle Chickenfoot.
You're right.
How about
Idle Chicken Feet?
Chicken feet.
Yeah, and our logo is Cheetos. I don't know, man. Yeah. It's like, what is? Yeah, it's just so bizarre. Like the whole thing is just gets silly and so weird. But yeah, I don't know. And Clint, are you in a band? Do you play music in a band?
I do. Hang on, I'm writing out. Our logo is Cheetos.
So did you come up with your name? Like, to me,
I
feel
got so fucking frustrated. I like the favorite thing that has come out of my stupid fucking brain in the recent past. I don't know, whatever. Was fairly ugly, because then you can abbreviate it to FU. It's not something overly serious. It's there's fun had on all angles there. The band that I'm in, the name was created in 2018, 19, something like that. It's called Insidiant. And part of the criteria was it has to be something that nobody else has.
Yeah.
And a couple of the guys in the band who are not in the band anymore, it had to be fucking metal. It had to be fucking cool. And we weren't long into that process before I said, I'm out. We're never going to agree. You guys decide whatever the fuck you want to decide, and I'll decide if I'm still in the band afterward.
Can you imagine, like, just being like, listen, guys, we need a band name. Here's the criteria. It has to be cool.
Well, goes without saying.
I was talking to the dude in Hippotractor last year. They're fucking great, and they're Swedish or something like that. I shouldn't just do this off the cuff, but here we are. And I asked him about the name, and he said, I wanted something fucking stupid and specifically not metal.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
And that's cool.
Right.
Like, a lot of bands, it's really hard to have a meaning attached to your name and a cool name, and we're lucky. But then, dude, people that just like, fuck it, this is our name. Like Silly Goose, that's a dope name, because that's like, I don't care, we're a bunch of silly goose. Like, you know,
it's a punk name.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and I feel like also too, I think with some of those band names, you know what I mean? Even if they are silly, it's like the music like puts meaning to those words, and they're conveyed. And I always love that. Like there's this band that I've been recently introduced to, and I you know, I listened to them a lot in the tour van, called Tropical Fuck Storm. And it's just like, the first time I heard that, I was like, what? You like, what are we doing? And then now that I listen to them, I was like, fuck yeah, Tropical Fuck Storm. Like, that's the fucking greatest name ever. You know what I mean? And so, it's interesting. But yeah, my God, dude, you could literally do an entire podcast series just about band names. I feel like, because you don't want to, it's so hard to just be like, this is our name. And I look at it like, is this name any better? Are these words any better than the song titles? You know what I mean? And that's like when Josh and I went through that. He's like, are you sure you're going to want to name it this? And I was like, yeah, you know, it's like, I want all the songs to sound like a band name, you know what I mean? Like a 2-word band name, with the exception of Mama. And so that's how I approached it. But, you know, I don't know if that's just because we're on a roll of having to choose a name, you know, but yeah, someone get us off this topic quickly.
Pivot. Somebody pivot.
Yeah, sorry, Chickenfoot. Your name's seriously dope, dude.
No, it's great. So also earlier, I believe that it was mentioned that you had a hand in the album art there, Sean. Let's pivot to the album art, because it is striking and abstract and fitting. How did that come to be?
So the cover is actually done by this amazing artist from England. His name is Richard Wadcock. And he, you know, I hate Instagram and the internet, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't give it enough credit for the great things that it brings me, but that algorithm brought me Richard Wadcock, you know, and there was this one piece that just popped up on my feed when I was working on something, and Josh, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. It was like kind of like white or gray, and it just had this little itty bitty scribble of red. And I sent it to Josh, and I was just like, dude, this is, you know, just a little blood to see it through. Like, this is from that lyric in Mama. And he was like, yes, I love that. And so as we were kind of like going through that, you know, we were just like, fuck it, let's just shoot our shot. Let's just see if he's interested. And, you know, he's I think he's our age or older, so he's a little slower to get back to us, time difference, etc. And Richard was just like, yeah, I'm interested. What are we doing here? And I kind of told him the deal, how it works, how album cover works with the record, etc. And then he's like, hey, I drew these, and if you're interested, I can draw something different. And then I just got this idea, and I talked to Josh about it. I was like, dude, do you think he'll just listen to our record and draw it? Like, do you think that this accomplished artist will, like, we can just bring this guy who's in a totally different spectrum of art into this, and then he'll just listen to the record and draw it? And I sent him the message, and I didn't hear from him forever. And we're like, oh shit, I probably went too far, and we're thinking about other artists. And then and I'd sent him the record, and then he messaged us back. He goes, this is what I heard. And he had drawn that cover. Now that cover is I believe it's charcoal. It's 36 inches by 36 inches. It's enormous. I actually bought it from him, and had it framed. But he gave us 3 different ones, and the one we chose, because as it's an hour-long record, and he did 3 throughout the length of it. And during, we chose that one. And the reason that we chose that one is because I was so struck by how he did the squiggle lines, like the squiggles across all of it. And I was like, this guy heard the anxiety. He heard my anxiety, and he knew how to do it. That is what anxiety looks like. Whether that's what he meant or didn't mean, doesn't matter. It's like, that's how it was received. And that was the first thing I told Josh. I was like, dude, it's like, this is he drew it. Like, this is what it looks like. This is what the record looks like. And so we were like super lucky that Richard did that for us, and it was just incredible. And so moving on from that, I knew right away that I didn't want to have any fonts or any any type on the entire record. I wanted everything to be hand done. I wanted it to have a very organic feel. And I wanted to showcase the players with this amazing photographer that, went with us. And, and then I was like, you know what? I want to illustrate these songs. Each one of these songs, I want to illustrate something that's going on in the song. And I took a stab at it. And then the more I thought about it, I was just like, why am I not asking my daughter Hazel to help me with this? It's like, she's an accomplished artist. This is what she does. And it took a little convincing, and, it'd be like, hey, I need help with this. Is this something you're interested in doing with your dad? And she agreed, and, and then I art directed it. And then I think she just knocked it out of the park. The first one she put together was the nest. And, that was the illustration for Rare Bird, you know what I mean? And we kept going round and round about, do we need to add something else to it? And she's like, Dad, it's an empty nest. This is what it is. It's not a nest. It's an empty nest. And I was like, no, you're right. So it was interesting to have this kind of like third party who's working on the art that I trust and partly made with another person, but also I wasn't a father in this scenario. I was a collaborator in this scenario. So it was really interesting. And so, she put this together, and then she, and one of my favorite pieces is the beast, in the middle of the record of like the child hands, just manhandling a hound and just ripping its teeth open, just like, it's like just tackling it and head first. So I just feel really lucky that she not only would do it, but that she did such a good job. Now, as far as like the rest of like the layout, I work with Jacob Spies from Relapse, as far as like the layout. But I had art directed, and I had done the entire layout of like where every page went. The more difficult part that I did for the layout, besides, doing the layout, was the manuscript. And so when you open up the album and you see this, this hand, like all of the lyrics are handwritten, and they're to scale. So I actually, had poster board that was the size of the album insert, laid out. And I went through each one of those songs maybe 15 times, and I hated them. I just hated every single one of them. It just looked like I went too tight, and it just didn't do it. And so I just thought about it real hard. And then I went back down in the middle of the night and I just put my headphones on. And then what I started doing is I started just listening to the song. And then when that emotion hit of like how I felt about it, I would let it get crazy, even if it was illegible. And then I would bring it back in. And so that really turned out to be the trick to the artwork really coming together in the way I wanted, is that the manuscript is like part of the art, So now we have Josh's concept of this album and the music. You have my concept and the vocal arrangements and the vocal, delivery. We have Richard Wadcock, who's this amazing artist who, by the grace of God, was gracious enough to listen to our album and to draw it for us and to let us license this thing from him. And then you've got my daughter who's going through the songs and she's like, this is what I hear. This is what I see. And then it comes all again together to where the person, is kind of directing it. It's just like, okay, the manuscript has to tell the same story. And I know this seems like a seemingly pointless, dumb, B-side detail, but like, I think that when you look at it and you see it, it's interesting to be like, you can put your hand on it and you can feel it and you're like, oh, this is what it is. And so I was really happy with that, especially when we went to Relapse, right? Because I did the best I could. You know what I mean? I'm doing it in scale. I'm sending it off and all that. But when we were at Relapse, when we were playing those first two shows, Drew was like, got a surprise for you. And I was like, God, I hope it's the record. And like, man, it was just such a cool moment, because it's always great to get your record for the first time. But like, they let us do extra paper. I mean, they really let us spend some money on this thing, And so just being able to see that little extra detail come to life off the page, with the drawings and then the photography, it's just I was just like, yes, this is the thing that was in my head, you know what I mean? And it came out. And as many records as I've made, there's always some fuck up. There's a fuck up on 0-2. There's a fuck up on, all of these records. This is the first time I have a record that it's like, there's not a thing I wish I had done differently. You know what I mean? It's like, it was complete in a way that like, I've never had a record complete before. I don't really know why that is, you know what I mean? Maybe I'm just more grateful, but like that, I feel like that art of it was so important, to the record, you know what I mean? And to see that. And Josh and I are posting it later next week, but like we also Drew from Relapse, I know we're talking about him a lot, but he came up with this great idea. He's just like, hey, for your release show, you should do some hand silk screen covers. You should do like a limited edition, like, 50 or 100 hand silk screen covers. And this part is super lame because I used to own a screen print company and I could have fucking done this myself, but I don't anymore. So I had to send it to Seattle to get done at Broken Press. Right. And so what we did was I took art from Hazel, and then I took art from my 18-year-old son, who's doing flyers and gig flyers and stuff like that. And we combined them together, the nest with like this, the Hounds of Hell and all this other stuff. So like, then I got this total second chance to like kind of tell this other story, this very limited 1 of 50 story. And then all the band gets this, we're going to have everybody sign them. And then on the inside of it, it's got an inscription. It's like, this was only released on their first show on April 11th with Norma Jean and the band. So like just being able to do that really nerdy, like vinyl nerd stuff, it just turned out great. And even within, I messaged Josh right before everything. I was like, dude, there are no fuck ups. There's not a single fuck up on this. Like, there's no burnt screen. There's no bleed. There's not, like, the colors are right. So like I put it together. It's like, it's not too big. It's not too small. I mean, how many people who've done punk records are like, get it done? They're like, fuck, this doesn't fit in the record sleeve. What do we do? And you're out there at Kinko's, chopping them. So like, I was just like, what happened? Like, how did we get so lucky? So I like to think it's, we're we're older and we know what we're doing, but like I just used to everything fucking up. But like, yeah, it on this one, it gets two art treatments, and like both of them are like just like incredibly cool,
Yeah, that's fucking awesome, man. I mean, I think that all the art stuff is awesome, and album art is incredibly important. Like that you are judging a book by its fucking cover, and does this fit that? Yeah, that's great. I would not be doing myself. I would do. I'm going to say a sentence that makes sense. Maybe I'd be doing a disservice as the guy with a podcast called Epitome of Stupidity if I didn't take a second to just linger on the name Richard Wadcock.
That's a very British name.
We're just going to leave it as it is and go from there. You mentioned in passing there, Sean, the release show. Well, not in passing because of the whole extra art. The release show with Norma Jean. What a killer 1-2 fucking punch you guys are going to be. How did that come to be? And are there any larger touring plans in the works? Do you need to take a drink of water since you just said a lot? Should I give this to Josh?
This is Josh. He put the show together, so he'll be better.
Yeah. I had a friend reach out to me that was opening a new venue in Kansas City, and I did a walkthrough on it, and they were like, "Hey, we'd be extremely happy to host Idle Heirs here for one of your first shows." And I was like, "Well, we're already going to the East Coast. We've got some pretty cool shows lined up there. We'll work something out." And I had mentioned to him that April 11th was when the album was coming out, and he goes, "Well, that's a Friday, and it's a venue." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, what do you want to do?" And he's like, "Well, what do you think would be a really cool album release? Like, how can we make this really cool?" And I was like, let me think on that real quick. And since I've produced 2 Norma Jean records and I'm friends with those guys, and they're not that far away, they're in Arkansas. I just reached out to Corey because that's actually his birthday as well. And I was like, "Hey man, like, do you want to come play our album release?" Like, it felt like such a high school fucking thing, but he's like, "Yes." He goes, Norma Jean, they're huge fans of what Sean does in Coalesce. They had Sean on an album with them. And they're friends with me, and it was just like a no-brainer. He's like, "Yeah, absolutely." He goes, "Whatever we need to do, how can we help you guys get this thing kicked off right?" And Corey's been really helpful in doing that. So he was gracious enough to, they're writing their next album. They're only doing like 6 shows this year, something like that. And they're coming up to KC for a one-off show with us just to hang out. And then I'm a big DIY. I want to see the little guy come up, and there's this dope band in town that I've produced called Double Drag. And they're like a shoegaze, new gaze, kind of 90s, big rock guitar, hum-esque band. And I was like, man, we got Norma Jean, who's extremely heavy, fast heavy. You have us, which is really long, drawn out heavy. And then we're going to have this really cool melodic kind of different heavy band. And that's it. You get 3 different flavors, and it's just a bunch of homies hanging out. It's, it's family, and it's just hometown cool KC show that we very lucky to be able to do at a new venue with a friend. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I am, if Kansas City weren't so fucking far away, I'd happily make the trip for it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We
are stuck here in the middle.
Are there any larger tour plans in the works?
Sean and I have softened a lot on touring. It was out of the question originally. And then, we did the East Coast stuff. Nothing of note to talk about, but we're open to opportunities. We're in talks with a couple things. We'd really like to get out to Europe now that we're working with Swamp over there. I'd love to do some festivals over there. I think there's a big market over there that we would find, kindred spirits in that music in Europe. But nothing right now. I think we're going to get through this album release and again, circle the wagons, kind of find out where we're at. see what happens once the album's out and people actually get to hear what we've been working on, and then start talking to people. There's stuff out there. We just we're gonna wait for the right thing.
Hell yeah. At this point, I'm going to do the obligatory coalesce question here, and then we'll round this into the goofy way I end these things. I know there was a run of shows recently. I feel obligated to bring this up for multiple reasons here. The larger one on my end is that the shows were with friends of the show here, with Guiltless, who was on the show recently.
Yeah.
And Kowloon, who's been on the show twice. How'd those shows go? Are there more things coming from Coalesce?
Yeah, those shows are amazing. And what makes a great show is being able to tour with bands like that. So Guiltless is a really, those were their very first 3 shows.
Right.
They'd never played before.
They were so good on this stupid fucking podcast talking about how they weren't going to be in the same fucking room until like a day before that first show.
You couldn't tell. They sounded amazing. Like they were, I mean, and Jess is, the guitarist of Coalesce, he has had the record for the past year and a half of Guiltless. And, and I'm sure your listeners know this, the bassist of Guiltless is Sasha Dunable from Dunable Guitars, and Dunable Guitars, is like, has endorsed Jess. And so those two are just like 2 peas in the pod. They're just guitar guys going back and forth, like teen girls, like from what I can tell. So so Jess had that record. It was interesting because I was listening to him and he's just like, dude, they nailed it. Like, I know these songs. Like they can't pull one by me. This is what the record sounds like. So it's just really interesting that just seems impossible. I mean, think about that. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not a singer and getting together first time. I mean, this is like a full ass band, So I was very impressed with them. Also, they're just a good hang, you know what I mean? And so, and then Kowloon Wall City, I've known, Scott for years and years as we've, I worked on his merch store and merch items and things like that. And so this was the first time meeting him in person and his team. And it's just, I just feel like the difference between a good tour and a bad tour is a good band, good people, or being on tour with dipshits, you know what I mean? And this was just one of the best tours, you know what I mean? These guys were just, cut from the same cloth. So that being said, it was really fun. And also those clubs all treated us really well too. In California, I've never had a good experience in California. We've always had shows that, were bust or the van broke down, etc. But yeah, I mean, those bands were the highlight of the trip for sure. It was as far as anything else planned. I think that we there's a handful of little things planned, but nothing that I'm allowed to talk about yet. But the bigger thing though is like Josh was mentioning, with the air stuff, it's like I too am interested to see what this looks like in Europe, because it's like that's the first thing I learned first time I went over to Europe. I was like, it's like the idea of music is very different, right? So my first introduction to European music festivals, real festivals, was Hellfest in 2009, I think. And in America there's fests, which is the popular bands, people go up to the popular bands and they go outside and smoke when the band they haven't heard of yet. Is that, you know what I mean? Or maybe some of them get smart, this one Josh and I just played was really cool, to where they actually, Josh, I'm farting the name, but the subterranean dissonance, they had it really cool to where they had it to where it was designed to where people would go back and forth to each show, you know what I mean? They made it to where people could see both, you know what I mean? But Europe, going into Europe, it's a totally it's so different, you know what I mean? It's I think there was 40,000 people, and I'm just watching this mass of dirt and piss and shit and who else knows what flying in the air, and I just see this like 15-foot pole just get erected in the middle of all these people, and it just kind of like falls down like Lord of the Rings, and then this punk ass 30-foot flag of Belgium unfolds, and then another one comes up and it's England, and then another one comes up and it's France, and it's just fans that are, it's like they eat and breathe, like it's important to them. You know what I mean? And like that kind of festival experience. And I didn't really understand that about Europe, that is how they like, it's so important, like that's how they digest music. So, you know what I mean? And I feel like Idle Heirs is the type of band that belongs on that type of, that stage and being showcased in that type of way. So like, to me, it's like, I'm just itching to introduce ourselves to that type of fan. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so, many stories from Hellfest. What an experience. But anyways.
Awesome. I can't wait to see more being done, and from at least my point of view, be able to live through them through the interwebs there. Guys, I'm sure we could do another hour here that would be just as interesting as the almost fucking first two have been. Instead, we're going to round this into the goofy way I end these things, unless you guys get on to your nights here. We'll do this with a round of stupid fire questions. They used to be quick fire, but sometimes the answers go long, and the show's called the epitome of stupidity. So I bet you can't figure out how I put that together. We'll do a standard run of Josh, then Sean for all of these questions.
Okay.
Leading right off with an easy one: coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Oh, I'm after you. Coffee, of course.
Yes. What's something you could eat for a week straight?
Mexican food.
Pizza.
Mexican pizza.
Pizza kill you.
I'll eat it till I'm dead.
If you had to compare Idle Heirs to an animal, what would the animal be?
Oh,
fucking T-Rex.
Rabbit. It's the rabbit. Rabbit. It's the rabbit. It's the hare.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the most fierce animal ever.
What's a song you grew up hearing that you hope you never hear again?
Oh, fuck. Grew up hearing?
Yeah.
That's just a kind of a lead in. It's more just, I want to hear something you can't fucking stand.
Uptown Funk. I don't ever want to fucking hear that song again.
Bro, I second the motion. Fuck that song.
Third and stamp.
Sure, it's great. It's a good song. I don't ever want to hear it.
Or is it?
I'm over it.
The other end of that is, what's one heavy song that everybody should hear?
Oh, should hear that probably hasn't heard?
Yeah.
Yeah. Above the Rafters by Starkweather. It's the one, dude. It's like, it's the most important song, dude. Starkweather just doesn't get the love. Like, they didn't get their roses, dude.
No. Shit. Heavy song that people need to hear. Oh, man. That's a really good question that I'm having a hard time. Gosh, I can't think of the name, or just, I'm going to say the record. There's a band called Architect, not Architects. They're heavy, like, metal band called Architect, and they're heavy as crap. Hold on one second. I can tell you. I got it on my phone right now.
Is that the KC band?
Say what?
Is that the Kansas City band?
No. That band's not it.
There's another Architect.
All Is Not Lost is the record, and the song is Tree Panning for Oil.
I have never heard either one of these things, and I'm going to listen to them.
Dude, Starkweather rips. So does
Where was that here? Beer or liquor?
Liquor. Brown liquor.
That's synonymous there.
Specifically.
What's the first album you ever bought not form specific? What's the first thing you bought music-wise with your own money?
Cargo by Men in Black.
What?
Yeah, that's the first thing I bought. How far back are we going?
Dude.
Going back to 10, baby.
First record I bought with my own money was Gosh, what's the Sepultura one with the guy hanging upside down?
Chaos AD.
That's it. Yeah.
You win this round.
I do.
Go-to karaoke song.
Fucking Mother, dude. All day, all night.
Ooh. You know what? I second that. That's a fucking.
That's the song.
I'm with it.
Last one here. Sausage links or patties?
Patty. Yeah.
3 for 3. Good fucking job. This last question here is not one of the stupid fire questions because I already said one of those was the last one. This is a different thing. And it's completely unique to this show. Nobody's ever asked anything near to this previously or ever will again. So patent pending and all those things. You guys, Josh and Sean of Idle Heirs, get sent to separate fucking islands to live out the rest of your lives. You get to take one album with you. What's the album?
So, it's gonna be Anima by Tool, no question.
And because I can swim to his island, it's going to be Lateralis by Tool.
All right, so you guys are going to combine there. Quick hot take: Lateralis overrated. No thanks.
Wow, I haven't ever heard anybody be that wrong that publicly.
The end of it sucks, man. Those couple slow songs to end it. No thanks.
Oh, well.
Are you being ironic, or have you?
No, I'm not.
Wow.
We need to introduce Clint to the Tool band subreddit.
Yes,
and try that hot take out
and see how long.
Dude, you'll get doxxed in like 5 minutes.
Over under 1 second that I live. So at this point, I'd like to say thanks to Sean and Josh for joining me today. Again, the debut Idle Heirs album, Life is Violence, is out everywhere April 11th. At this point, I can't imagine how you would not want to fucking hear it. Make sure to set aside some time to do so and enjoy the fuck out of it as I have. Links for the band are in the show description, wherever you're hearing this from. Do me a favor, hit the old subscribe button to wherever it is you're hearing this from. Please and thanks. Also in the show description, you'll find links for the show's social media stuff, as well as its partners and Sonic Temple, one of those big festivals we were talking about, the Brimming Horn Meadery. And speaking of Sonic Temple, still email your favorite Metallica song to eostupidity@gmail.com for a chance to see them at Sonic Temple. At this point, I'm going to kick it back to Josh to get us out of here right.
Wait, hold on. That favorite song better be Battery.
So far, a good majority of those.
Clint is only accepting Battery.
So far,
Seek and Destroy.
I
Man,
don't know.
I really liked you up until these last couple minutes. You were gone.
Yeah, I'm Josh from Idle Heirs, and this is Dead Ringer.